Now that all of our dialogue has been cleaned up and our sound effects and music spotted, we can move to the next phase of audio post, enhancing the soundtrack by adding audio effects and mixing each track to the appropriate levels. To follow along, open Lesson 23 from the Timeline Quick Access menu. As I've been listening to the soundtrack, there's one section of the dialogue that I've never really been happy with. Press R to call up the Range Selection tool, then drag out a range over the first two dialogue clips. Solo the track, then press Option / to play the selection. So right now I'm in a ghost town called Nelson, Nevada. It's also known for alien activity. The first sentence doesn't properly set up the second sentence about Nelson being known for alien activity, and I'd like to re-record it. If you have a dedicated USB mic and you'd like to use it for following along, connect it to your computer. If you don't have a mic, you can use your computer's built-in mic. Click in the gray area to deselect the range. Open your computer's sound preferences. On my Mac, I have a number of different sound inputs to choose from. For recording, I often use a Yeti microphone from Blue. Make sure to monitor the signal to make sure your Mac or PC is picking it up. Then close the window. Back in Resolve, press Shift-9 to call up the project settings. Click the Capture and Playback settings. In the Capture section, choose where you want to save your recorded audio files to by clicking the Browse button. You can save the voiceover files anywhere in your system, but for media management purposes, it's better to save it into the directory that contains the media your project is referencing. Let's save it into the Resolve Project Files folder you downloaded for following along with this tutorial. Open the folder. Select Alien Hunter, then the Teaser 2 folder. I'll create a new folder and name it Voiceovers. Then click OK, then OK again. Then click Save to close the project settings window. For recording voiceover, it's a good idea to create a dedicated track. Right-click on the track header for dialogue and choose Add Tracks. Make sure below Dialogue is selected and the audio track type is set for mono. Then click Add Tracks. Name the track Voiceover. In the upper right toolbar, open the mixer. Expand it if you need to. The input settings appear at the top of each channel strip, just below the track number. Currently, the input reads No Input. Click on the button for A2 and choose Input. The Patch Input-Output window opens. Source inputs appear on the left, and track destination inputs appear on the right. Select the Channel 1 input of your mic. The voiceover track destination should already be selected. Both input and output targets should have a white outline around them to indicate you're about to patch them. The last step is to click Patch in the lower right. The voiceover track icon now has a text label that it's using my Yeti mic as its input. Close the window. Next, we need to arm the track for recording. Before we do that, disable the sound output from the system by clicking the speaker icon next to the dim slider. If you don't do this, you'll end up recording a feedback loop. To arm the voiceover track, click the R button. So what are we going to record? I'll bring it up on the screen for you. Before you record, it's a good idea to practice your line once or twice. Now park the playhead in the general area you want the recording to begin, then click the Record button in the Transport section. Nelson, Nevada is a ghost town known for gold mining. Press the spacebar to stop recording. Disable the arm button, then solo the voiceover and dialogue tracks. Press A to bring up the pointer mode tool, then select the unwanted part of the dialogue and press Delete. Set a playback range using the I&O key to include the voiceover recording and the good part of the dialogue. Re-enable the audio playout of your system, then press Option or Alt / to play the range. Nelson, Nevada is a ghost town known for gold mining. It's also known for alien activity. Select the voiceover clip, then nudge it to the right using the period key. Press Option / to preview the change. Nelson, Nevada is a ghost town known for gold mining. It's also known for alien activity. Press Option or Alt X to clear the range. Fairlight includes a wide variety of native audio processing plugins that work on Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. Open the Effects Library panel. In the Audio Effects section, you'll find the Fairlight effects listed at the top. Resolve also supports third-party VST plugins for both Mac and Windows users, and a Mac-only category of audio units plugins. You can apply these effects to single or multiple clips, or even an entire track. Select the Fairlight effects category, then locate the de-esser. A de-esser is an audio repair plugin specific to dialogue. It's designed to reduce hissing S sounds or sharp ts sounds. The technical word for this is sibilance. Let's hear an example of this. With the Range Mode tool active, click the second dialogue clip in the A1 track. Play it back, paying particular attention to how the S's sound in his delivery. For the past 80 years, for reasons inexplicable, families on vacation would be heading to Las Vegas, and for some unknown reason, they just make a right turn on Interstate 95 and end up here. While not super distracting, a de-esser could improve this clip. Drag it from the library onto the clip. The de-esser window appears with some fairly simple controls. A de-esser is a compressor that only reduces the loudness of selected frequencies. Sibilance is usually exhibited somewhere between 4 kHz and 10 kHz. This dip in the graph depicts the default frequency range that is being reduced. Because most of the sibilance occurs at the beginning of this clip, reduce the size of the selection range by resetting the out point. And make sure looping is enabled. Press Option or Alt / to loop playback. For the past 80 years, for reasons inexplicable, I found it helpful to include more frequencies to better pinpoint the sounds I want to reduce. Click this button to widen the frequency range, then sweep the graph to the left. For the past 80 years, for reasons inexplicable, for the past 80 years. Now sweep to the right. Reasons inexplicable for the past 80 years. The reduction of the S sounds seemed to be the most effective in the 6 kHz range. To hear if you hit the sweet spot, click the Listen to S Only button. The frequency graph is inverted to accentuate the sounds in the selected frequencies. Reasons inexplicable for the past 80 years. For reasons inexplicable. I think we nailed where the S sound occurs, but the range is too wide and may adversely affect neighboring frequencies. Select the narrowband button to focus the reduction on just the offending frequencies. Past 80 years. For reasons inexplicable. For the past 80 years. For reasons inexplicable. To hear a comparison between the clip without the effect applied and with it applied, click the effects bypass toggle. For reasons inexplicable. For the past 80 years. For reasons inexplicable. For the past 80 years. For reasons inexplicable. For the past 80 years. To save your adjustments as a preset, click the plus button and enter a name for the preset. I'll call this Steve DE. Now close the window and press Option or Alt X to clear the selection range. If you need to make further adjustments to the plugin, press A to select the clip, then open the inspector. The controls appear in the effects panel. To recall the interface, click this button. Let's delete the plugin by clicking the trash can button. Audio effects can also be applied to an entire track. This can be accomplished in one of two ways. You can either drag the plugin from the effects library directly onto the track header, or you can apply it on the mixer using the effects insert button at the top of the dialog channel strip. Locate the restoration group, then Fairlight Effects, then de-esser. While we have the de-esser window open, you can choose the preset you just saved from this menu. Now your preset will be applied to every clip in the dialog track. When a track has an effect applied, you'll see an effects label appear in the upper right of the track header. A fairly common sound editing task that can help you work more efficiently with multiple tracks is grouping them into submixes, which allows you to place related tracks into a single bus for the purpose of mixing them as a single channel strip on the mixer. Submixes are usually grouped into broad categories for dialogue, music, and effects, commonly referred to as D, M, and E stems. Before you create submix buses, it's assumed that you've already taken the time to go through your project and mixed all your dialogue source clips against one another, and your sound effects and music sources against one another, so that you have a properly balanced mix for each type of sound you're working with. For example, if you solo the wild effects track and play it, I've already taken the time to make the levels for each individual sound effect consistent. In the busing stage, you would route all of your dialogue through one bus, your effects through another bus, and your music through yet another, then mix these buses against one another. To set this up, go to the Fairlight menu and choose Bus Format. This window is where you assign tracks to one of 4 bus types. A submix is just one of those bus types. The bus labeled Main 1 is the default bus that outputs stereo audio for this project. Click the Sub button to add a submix bus to the list. This submix will be used for all related voice tracks. Make sure it's set for mono, then give the bus a descriptive name. Let's name this Dialogue Sub. You can also assign a color. I'm going to choose navy to match the color of the track. Click the Sub button twice to add 2 more submixes. Name Sub 2 Sound Effects Sub and Sub 3 Soundscape Sub. Because the music and sound effects are stereo tracks, set them both to stereo and choose a bus color. Click OK to close the window. Next, we need to assign our tracks to the submix buses we just created. From the Fairlight menu, choose Bus Assign to open the Bus Assign window. At the top of the window are all the available buses, and directly below are all the possible tracks, submixes, and aux buses that you can assign to these buses. Start by selecting the Dialogue Sub button. It's kind of hard to tell it's selected, but the text label is a bit brighter than the others. Now you just choose the tracks from the lower list that you want to include in the dialogue submix. Select Dialogue, Voiceover, and Room Tone. The S1 label is added to the bottom of the button next to the M1 label. Since we do not need the individual tracks to be in the main bus, once they're assigned to the submix, we can remove them. Select the M1 main bus in the upper left. Notice that an M1 text label appears on every track. Now click the Unassign All button to remove all individual tracks from the main bus. Now only the dialogue tracks have assignments. Let's look at a cool way to assign tracks to other buses. Select the S2 submix. Then drag a marquee around the background, wild effects, and Foley tracks to assign them. Finally, select the S3 sub and select the soundscape track. At this point, we have all our tracks going to buses, but the buses aren't going anywhere, which will result in no sound output. Select the main 1 bus, then select the 3 submix buses we created. This will add them to the main 1 output bus. Click the Close button to close the window and save the track assignments. Now, instead of having to adjust 7 individual tracks, we only need to adjust one of the 3 buses in the mixer. Before we move on, make sure to unsolo all tracks and press Shift-Z to fit the timeline to the window. With the mixer open, expand it so you can see all the track channel strips, including the submix channel strips at the far right, labeled S1, S2, and S3, with the main labeled M1. When you adjust a fader, the volume is adjusted for the entire track, or group of tracks if they're included in a submix. Play back from the beginning and watch the meters for the submix buses. Nelson, Nevada is a ghost town known for gold mining. It's also known for alien activity. Drag on the fader for the soundscape bus to raise or lower the volume. For the past 80 years, for reasons inexplicable, families on vacation would be heading to Las Vegas, and for some unknown reason, they just... To reset the volume, double-click the fader. Interstate 95. The dialogue is a bit low overall. Drag upward on the fader while watching the decibel value just below the mute button. When it reads 2 decibels, release your mouse. Stop, they get out, they take a break, and then they disappear for the rest of their lives. Well, according to the government, there's no such thing. One of the best uses of a dedicated mixer is to record the volume changes you make to a track as it plays back in real time. This is called automation recording. We'll be working with the soundscape submix. Select the channel strip in the mixer. Selecting a channel strip is not a necessary step for automation setup, but I do this so that the track clearly stands out from the others in the mixer. In the transport control area, click the Automation button to reveal the Automation toolbar. A new set of buttons will appear, allowing you to enable certain parameters for automation. For this track, we only want to automate the fader, though you can see there are a number of other parameters that can be animated. Over the left side of the toolbar are 2 items, Write and Trim. If you're recording automation data for the first time, choose Write. After you've recorded your automation data, You would use trim to record relative changes to your automation data to increase or decrease levels that have already been recorded. Open the index if it's not already open, then in the tracks list, make sure that the Soundscape Submix Visibility toggle is enabled. Disable the S1 and S2 submixes. Verify that you see the Soundscape Submix track at the bottom of the track list. To arm the submix for recording, click the Automation Record button. The fader turns red in the channel strip. Then use the track menu to choose Fader Level. Press Home to move the playhead to the beginning. Drag the fader upward to 3 dB to set our initial volume at this level at the start of the track. Before we record, the goal is to keep the track at this level, then lower it just before the dialog kicks in. The playhead position will be our indicator when to fade down and when to fade up. If you need to, adjust the size of your tracks so you can clearly see the blue dialog track. Here we go. Press the spacebar to begin playback. Nelson, Nevada is a ghost town known for gold. As I adjust the fader, automation keyframes are added to the track. For the past 80 years, for reasons inexplicable, families on vacation would be heading to Las Vegas, and for some unknown reason, they just make a right turn on Interstate 95. Press the spacebar to halt playback, and you can tell from the keyframe graphic where the volume was increased and decreased. That's pretty cool. All my fader adjustments are recorded as volume keyframes in the submix track. I'll play over this section where I really boosted the volume, and notice that the fader reacts to the changes in the automation data recorded into the track. For alien activity. For the past 80 years. If you want to edit or delete the data, click the Range Select button, then drag a box around the keyframes, then press Delete. I'll select all of them, then press Delete so that the track is back at our starting volume. Just for fun, select the pencil tool, then draw in the fades into the submix track where you want them. Now it's time for you to try your hand at recording. When you're finished, jump to the next lesson where you'll learn how to output your project using the Deliver page.